to the Aboriginal channel. In a previous video, I had went over a little bit about this judicial toolkit on Indian law, an overview of key federal Indian law cases. And the first one in 1823 says the foundational legal principle laid out in Johnson is that discovery gave title to the government by whose subjects or by whose authority it was made against all other European governments, which title might be consummated by possession. The opinion incorporates the principles of the doctrine of discovery in the United States law. The exclusive rights of the discovering European nation to acquire the soil from the Indians, the diminished sovereignty of tribes resulting as a consequence of discovery, and the Indian right of occupancy. Under this doctrine, the Indians' title of occupancy is not a fee simple. It can only be conveyed to the discovering sovereign, but unless recognized by treaty, statute, or executive order, it can be taken by the federal government free of the strictures of just compensation clause of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. So I looked up that case, and the guy Johnson was Thomas Johnson, one of the first Supreme Court justices, which his descendants inherited that land, so he was up there fighting for it as a judge. And then you had the defendant, which was William McIntosh. Now, the results of that right here at the doctrine of discovery.org, it says the Indians were admitted to be the rightful occupants of the soil, with a legal as well as a just claim to retain possession of it and to use it according to their own discretion. But their rights to complete sovereignty as independent nations were necessarily diminished. And that was in 1823. So we're going to go over here to historical collections of Georgia containing the most interesting facts, traditions, biographical sketches, and anecdotes from 1855. So from that court decision that gave the Indians back their land and their right to it in 1823, that takes us over here to 1825 in Carroll County in Georgia. Now, what's interesting about it is that right down here it says extracts from the census of 1850. It says dwellings, gives you the number of families, then the number of white males, then number of white females. It says free colored males were 2, free colored females were 2. Total free population was 8,000. Then it gives you a number of slaves at 1,100. My point is, why call the white males and white females part of the free population? But we're going to go over here to, it says it was in this county that General William McIntosh was killed by the Indians. Pause. So I'm a little bit confused. They're calling General William McIntosh a general and that he was killed by the Indians. But right here it says that this is a letter, a copy of a letter from Peggy and Suzanne McIntosh to Messrs. Campbell and Merriweather, United States Commissioners. It starts off by saying, gentlemen, when you see this letter, stained with blood of my husband, the last drop of which is now spilt, for the friendship he has shown for your people. Now, the way that's expressed, it would seem that the guy, William McIntosh, was an Indian, because it's saying his wife is addressing the United States Commissioners with the fact that the blood of her husband was spilt for the friendship he shown for their people. It says, I know you will remember your pledge to us in behalf of your nation, that in the worst of events you would assist and protect us. And when I tell you that at daylight on Saturday morning last, hundreds of hostiles surrounded our house and instantly murdered General McIntosh and Tom Tuscaloosa by shooting near 100 balls into them, Chili and Moody Kennard making their escape through a window. They then commenced burning and plundering in the most unprincipled way, so that here I am driven from the ashes of my smoking dwelling, left with nothing but my poor little naked hungry children who need some immediate aid from our white friends, and we lean upon you while you lean upon your government. About the same time of the morning that they committed the horrid act on the general, another party caught Colonel Samuel Hawkins and kept him tied until about 3 o'clock, when the chiefs returned from our house and gave orders for his execution in the same way, and refused to leave his implements to cover his body up, so that it was left exposed to the fowls of the air and the beasts of the forest. And Jenny and her child are here in the same condition as we are. This party consisted principally of Okfussis, Talladegas, and Mukfus, though there were others with them. The chiefs that prepared the head the party were Inlak Kunji of Mosfa, Toloko Casco Maiko of Aprahochochi, Manaho, but I know not where he was from, who said they were ordered to do it by the little prince and Hiopo, and that they were supported and encouraged in it by the agent and the chiefs that were left after the big warrior's death in a council at Broken Arrow, where they declared that they would murder all the chiefs who had any hand in selling the land and burn and destroy and take away all they had, and then send on to the president that he should not have the land. I have not heard of the murder of any others, but expect all are dead that could be catched. But by reason of a great freshet in the Chattahoochee, they could not get Colonel Miller nor Hoagie McIntosh nor the Derisols, and they and Chile are gone to the governor. Our country is in a most ruined state, so far as I have heard, though by reason of the high waters word has not circulated fast. All have fled from their homes in our parts and taken refuge among their white friends. And I learned there are now at General Ware's near this place from 150 to 200 of them, who are afraid to go to their homes to get a grain of what little corn they had to eat, much more to try to make any more. And if you and your people do not assist us, God help us. We must die either by the sword or the famine. This moment General Ware has come in and will in a few minutes start with a few men and a few friendly Indians to try to get a little something for us to eat. I hope so soon as you read this you will lay it before the governor and the president, that they may know our miserable condition and afford us relief as soon as possible. I followed them to their camp about 1.5 miles to try to beg them something to cover the dead with, but it was denied me. I tried also to get a house to take my little children and some provisions to last us to the white settlements, which was given up to me and then taken back. And had it not been for some white men who assisted in burying the dead and getting us to the white settlements, we should have been worse off than we were, if possible. Before I close, I must remark that the whole of the party, so far as I knew them, were hostiles during the late war. So that's a little confusing because for 1 minute, they're speaking from a side of the Indians. So this may be the Creek and then the Red Stick Creeks, part of their war. But I want to go back and point out that they had a prince, someone called a little prince, that gave the order upon the death of someone named Big Warrior. So these are the ancestors we need to look into and learn about. But I wanted to say that in 1823, when they passed that law or gave Indians their land rights but diminished their sovereignty, that after that, one of these Indians must have sold some land they wasn't supposed to, because the Indian little prince and this other person with this too long of a name gave the word to murder all the chiefs who had any hand in selling the land. This further proves that the Creeks were still fighting in Georgia, and they also give names of smaller tribes of Indians that were also fighting in the 1820s. When you look William McIntosh up, it says he's also known as Tussanuckagee, who was one of the most prominent chiefs of the Creek Nation between the turn of the 19th century and his execution in 1825. Another interesting factor about this whole scenario, it says that the Creek War in Georgia, a war party of friendly Creek organized under William McIntosh, Big Warrior, and Little Prince, attacked 150 Yuchi warriors who were traveling to meet up with Red Stick Creeks in the Mississippi Territory. Now, that was in 1813, where it says the party burned a number of Red Stick towns. So here it shows where William McIntosh, Big Warrior, and Little Prince were on the same side. And then after that, I guess about 12 years later, from 1813 to 1825, it says that the chiefs that appeared to head the party were Inlaknuji of Mufsa, the local Costco Michael of Arapa Chochi, Manuho, but I know not where he was from, who said they were ordered to do it by the Little Prince and Hopo Yolo, and that they were supported and encouraged in it by the agent and the chiefs that were left after the Big Warrior's death. So apparently General McIntosh, who was murdered instantly, had something to do with the death of Big Warrior. A couple of things I wanted to point out about this. Right here it says that, and that they were supported and encouraged in it by the agent and the chiefs. So the agent was a European who would get in there and do whatever he had to do, whatever kind of tricks he had to pull to get the Indians to turn on each other. So the outcome would be that he would get some of the land. A lot of times they would go in with this real potent whiskey and alcohol and get the chiefs all drunk and talk them out of land and get them to sign certain documents and this and that and the other to get the land from them. Now I'm going to go look over at had another agent from the Choctaws in 1825, the same year that the Creek Indians had a falling out, to whereas Big Warrior was killed, and then Little Prince sent some Indians to kill the Creek Indian called General McIntosh. But before I go over and look at the Choctaw agent, I wanted to point out that the Indian here's name was Little Prince. So the way we know how Indians would name each other, Little has significance, and then Prince also has significance. Here at the website Encyclopedia of Arkansas.net, it says that in 1825, Arkansas's territorial governor, George Izard, named William L. McClellan as Choctaw agent. McClellan first established the Choctaw Agency at Fort Smith, Sebastian County. This was in Arkansas, which up here it says that considerable village of Choctaw lived south of the Arkansas River, although there was no significant presence of Choctaw in what would become the state of Arkansas. It goes on to say the U.S. government assigned a mixed blood Choctaw, Edmund Folsom, to convince the Choctaw to move to the land spoken of in the treaty. That was in 1820. But in 1825, they named William McClellan as Choctaw agent. He established it in Sebastian County, Arkansas. That would be way over here. So Choctaws were way down there. They like he had him right over here in Mississippi, but the agency was based at a fort way over here in 1825. And that's because all that battling was going on way up in here. It says by 1827, he had established the Choctaw Agency on the south side of the Arkansas River, 18 miles west of Fort Smith. In 1828, McClellan reported that not many Choctaw had immigrated. Only 8 had reported to the agency, while 40 or 50 were living on the Red River, and about 1,000 were living in small villages in Louisiana. So that shows right there that the Choctaws weren't just leaving their lands, and that's why they had to pass the laws later on when Andrew Jackson became president in 1829. Yet it says they were the first to be removed to Indian Territory in 1831. Up here it shows that the agent reported that not many Choctaw had immigrated. The last thing I want to point out about this is that when you look up the Creek War, it says it was fought between 1813 and 1814. However, when you look at other details, it shows that the Creeks were still fighting in Georgia into the 1820s. So it says that also known as the Red Stick War and the Creek Civil War was a regional war between opposing Creek factions, European empires, and the United States, taking place largely in today's Alabama and along the Gulf Coast, where previously in a video I showed where there was a fortification in the shape of a star right there on the Gulf Coast in Mobile. One more key factor in this that pretty much tells how this went is when you look back in this 810-page book from the 1850s, says that the general's wife says that I know you will remember your pledge to us in behalf of your nation, that in the worst of events you will assist and protect us. So that tells me that the General McIntosh, aka a potent Creek chief, when he won that case, he sold some land, which probably allowed them to move in and then go to war with Big Warrior and Little Prince, which after that battle, they sent Indians at the general. So it seems like they was turning Indians on each other, and then once they had the Indians killing each other off, whatever was left, they came in and took them on themselves. So it was basically united we stand, divided we fall type thing. So they divided the Indians, and then once they was divided, it was easy to make them fall, right? So as I end this, I just want to shout out all my loyal subscribers and viewers. I appreciate you guys. I love you and want you to do good in life. However, they say if you don't know where you came from, you can't know where you're going, or you just might not know where you're at when you get there. Through the history books, which has all been a lie. So therefore, if it's a lie, then what's the truth? If it's a lie, then what's the truth?